A former Hong Kong University professor is to be retried after his murder conviction is quashed on appeal. Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak's 12-year jail term for corruption is cut by half. And in Kenya, a gas tanker explosion triggers a series of blasts, killing at least 3 people and injuring hundreds.
The Court of Appeal has overturned the murder conviction of a former University of Hong Kong professor and ordered a retrial. Chan Ki-chong, a former professor of mechanical engineering, was sentenced to life in prison in 2020 after being found guilty in the High Court of murdering his wife Tina Chan 2 years earlier. 59-year-old Zhang had admitted manslaughter and preventing the lawful burial of Chan's body. He appealed against his conviction for murder. His lawyer argued that the High Court judge misdirected the jurors by not instructing them about Zhang's mental state at the time of the killing. The Court of Appeal will give its reason for quashing the murder conviction later. Zhang, who served as warden of the university's Wayland Hall, killed his wife in their home and hid her body in a box. The body was discovered 11 days after her death. Janice Yu, Cable News.
3 days after the government kicked off a month-long public consultation on the Article 23 National Security Law, the Bar Association said the authorities could consider including public interest as a defense. The proposal came because there is no mention of any exemptions for theft of state secrets. Bar Association Chairman Victor Dawes said the public interest defense has to be stated very clearly.
In a lot of the Law Reform Commission papers in other jurisdictions, it has been suggested that such defense ought to be included, and in some countries, when dealing with state secrets or information security, there are indeed such defenses. So it is something that we should definitely consider.
Dawes suggested that the exemption be applied to the public and not only to journalists, as the offense can be committed by anyone. Malaysia's former Prime Minister Najib Rajak has had his 12-year jail term for corruption reduced by half. The Pardons Board also slashed the fine imposed on him to $10 million from $40 million. Najib has to pay the fine before he can be released in 2028. He was jailed 2 years ago after he was convicted of embezzling the state sovereign fund 1MDB. Investigators estimate that more than $4.5 billion was stolen in a scandal involving some major international banks. Najib claimed innocence, saying he was misled by fugitive financier Joe Low. The politician, who was Prime Minister for 9 years until 2018, still faces other charges related to the scandal.
The skies of Nairobi lit up after a series of explosions rocked the Kenyan capital late last night. Terrified locals posted videos online asking neighbors what had happened after witnessing a massive fireball in the vicinity.
Oh my God. I had just a commotion outside. I didn't know what was happening. I saw people running, mothers and children. They had small babies carrying. I saw girls and boys were bleeding.
According to the local government, a gas tanker suddenly exploded while undergoing a refill at a storage in Embakasi. The force of the blast hurled pieces of burning debris to nearby homes, setting them on fire. Firefighters eventually arrived at the scene to extinguish the inferno, but by then, at least 3 people, including a child, were found dead. Another 271 were injured, suffering mostly burns and smoke inhalation. It was not known why the facility was allowed to operate in a dense residential neighborhood, and there are now suggestions of corruption. An investigation has begun into the cause of the fire, with a report expected within 2 weeks. Raymond Yang, Cable News.
The United Nations has called on the world not to abandon Palestinian children in Gaza. Their situation is getting bleaker by the day, according to the UN Children's Agency, UNICEF. Children account for at least 11,000 of the over 27,000 Palestinians killed since Israel attacked Gaza after Hamas raid in October. With most hospitals destroyed since the offensive began, the few still functioning are struggling to treat the wounded and deliver babies. About 20,000 babies have been born in Gaza since the hostilities began, and 50,000 pregnant Palestinian women may not get the care they need.
More than 65 patients in just 20 incubator, more than 2 to 3 patients in each incubator. The situation here is more than catastrophe.
Farmers have continued their protests outside the European Parliament in Brussels as leaders from the continent met in the Belgian capital. The farmers were demanding relief from rising prices, bureaucracy, and unfair competition from countries outside the bloc. In their fight for more subsidies, farmers staged major protests across Europe.
Nous avons ainsi obtenu
French President Emmanuel Macron said he would address their concerns over cheap agricultural imports from Ukraine. Farmers in France parked tractors on a highway in suburban Paris, disrupting traffic. Similar protests were staged across Italy. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said steps will be taken to reduce bureaucratic burdens.
Our agricultural world is very productive, is the most sustainable in the world, delivers quality products, while also need a pricing, a revenue that corresponds to that. It is a complicated discussion, but a discussion that we definitely need to have.
Although the farmers are happy that their issues are being discussed, they want written commitments before they cease their protests. Sachin Katvi, Cable News.
Now that the pandemic is history, business activity in the city has finally returned to normal. InvestHK, which focuses on luring foreign investments, disclosed that it helped 382 enterprises to set up shop or expand their business here last year. This was a 27% surge from 2022. Most of the firms were involved in financial services and financial technology.
我哋2023年嘅工作咧已經係階段性達標㗎啦。
With the authorities aiming to attract 1,130 enterprises by 2025, Alpha Lau, the new Director General of Investment Promotion, pointed out that a milestone was passed last year. The companies have injected $61.6 billion into the economy and created more than 4,000 jobs. About a third of them are based in China. Lau said the government's bid to implement the Article 23 national security law this year has not affected investor sentiment.
In fact, they've shared that in many countries, including their own, there is always some sort of national security legislation. Provided there's enough consultation, it is reasonable, they believe it will not really affect how they've always seen Hong Kong, which is the best place to do business. But the important thing is not one company, not a single company has been affected about their urge to come into Hong Kong to do business or to further expand their business to do business in Hong Kong.
Lau revealed that InvestHK will open offices in Egypt and Turkey this financial year. Janice Low, Cable News.
Financier Bao Fan, who has been helping mainland authorities in an unspecified investigation, has resigned as chairman and chief executive of China Renaissance Holdings. The 53-year-old, who founded one of the largest investment banks in China, stepped down for health reasons and to spend more time with his family, the company said. Bao's unexplained disappearance nearly 1 year ago saw China Renaissance stock in Hong Kong plunge nearly 30% before trading was suspended. The former Morgan Stanley and Credit Suisse banker was reportedly assisting in an anti-graft crackdown in the financial sector.